Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our May 25th City Council meeting. An unusual meeting in that we're meeting on a Tuesday rather than our normal Monday, with yesterday being the holiday. Today is the council meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting and state that today we are meeting under the circumstances of a provincial declaration of emergency and during a stay-at-home order. As a result, we are meeting electronically, and we look forward to getting together in person again when it's safe to do so. I want to thank our city staff for assisting in the setup of this electronic meeting of Belleville City Council. And I also want to thank all of the members of Belleville City Council for their cooperation and flexibility in meeting under these unusual circumstances as permitted by the provincial government. While we know the need for cooperation during the best of times, these virtual meetings are difficult and sometimes awkward, and I look to my colleagues for extra cooperation as we conduct the business necessary for the operations of the City of Belleville. For those watching on the city's streaming service or on our YouTube channel or on your TV, I would point out that our entire agenda and all the reports are on the City of Belleville website. It's located at www.belleville.ca. And if you go to that site, you can see under the agenda, minutes, and live meeting button, or you can click on there on the left side of the screen. When you go there, you can click on the May 25th date on the calendar, and it'll bring you to the agenda for today's meeting. There is a hyperlink in the agenda in the event you want to actually look at the reports that we are all using, and you can follow along with today's meeting. So with that, I will call the meeting to order and state that all members of council are present. I am here at City Hall, and all other members are present electronically. I will now ask the Director of Corporate Services and the City Clerk, Director Matt McDonald, to lead us in a moment of reflection.
May be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
All right, thank you, Director McDonald. Item number 3 on the agenda, disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Seeing none, we do not have any public meetings today, so we'll move to item number 5, the reading and confirmation of the minutes of the regular council meeting of May the 10th, 2021, and the regular in-camera meeting minutes of May the 10th, 2021, the special council meeting minutes of May 13th, 2021, and the special in-camera meeting minutes of May 13th, 2021. Could I please have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Alsop and Councillor Feeney. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. There are no deputations today, and there is no correspondence. So we'll move to item number 8, Committee of the Whole, and I'll entertain a motion to go into Committee of the Whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations, and resolutions with myself in the chair. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Feeney and Councillor Kelly. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Item 8A, reports. The agenda shall include under reports items that warrant individual attention from council. And 8A1 is appointment of members to various city committees and boards. It is the Director of Corporate Services, Clerk's Report number DCS 2021-25. And the resolution is that pursuant to the Director of Corporate Services, Clerk's Report number DCS 2021-25, appointment of members to various city committees and boards, a bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-02, the appointments bylaw, be prepared for council's consideration. Can I get this on the floor, please? Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor McCaw. Before I open it up for discussion, again, in this resolution is a recommendation for the appointment of the 2 current vacancies we have. We have 1 vacancy on the Belleville Public Library Board, and then we also have a vacancy on the Transit Committee. With respect to my recommendations, I've recommended Mr. Michael Harris to the position on Belleville Transit. And just for the benefit of council and some members of the public, with the expansion of transit into Ward 2, I felt it was important that we bolster the representation on that committee. We currently have councillors who are in the urban portion of Thurlow, where the route will go through. But there is going to be demand and requests for us to expand the service into farther areas north, including Foxborough. And Mr. Harris lives in that area, has for some time. He is also has a financial services background, and as the Transit Committee will be considering potential leasing of new equipment as we deal with some of our environmental issues, I think he brings a lot to the table, and I'm very comfortable making that recommendation. With respect to the Public Library Board, I'm recommending Jennifer May Anderson for this position. She is obviously a very accomplished individual. We all know her from her work as the Executive Director of Hospice Quinte and the construction of that new facility. She is also very well-spoken, very thoughtful. She is a representative of a local business professional women's association, and someone who I think would make a good contribution. It was a difficult decision because we received very many worthy applications, and I consider them, but I do think that out of a very good group of candidates, these are two of the best, and I feel comfortable in those recommendations. So I'll open it up for discussion. Councillor Feeney, if you want to activate your microphone, and then
yes, I will.
Go ahead.
Yes,
Yeah.
Because these are the positions that I held as a community member, I would really like to speak to this.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
both individuals contacted me, and they were very, very passionate, wanting to know about how, as a community member, you would be able to contribute. Mike Harris talked about expansion of the transit, which is, something I'm very passionate about. And we had a very good discussion. The same thing with Jennifer May Harris, and talking about how coping during the pandemic and everything else. They were very compassionate, passionate, and wanting to know as much as they could get. And okay, maybe I shouldn't have done it, but I told them both that I would support their applications because I did.
All right, good. Thank you very much, Councillor Feeney. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. Just so everybody at home watching or watching on a mobile device or whatever method they're doing it, 19 people did apply, and 2 residents did make an application for both vacant seats. The challenge I have with the process that we do this in open forum is I don't feel comfortable discussing the 2 candidates that you put forward, Mr. Mayor, and I don't feel comfortable in open forum discussing the credentials or the credibility of the folks that applied for the library board or the transit board. But I want to thank them for applying and showing interest in working with the city. Under the recommendations, I guess my question is for you, Mr. Mayor, is how did you decide that these 2 were best fit out of the 19 that applied? What was the defining moment?
I don't think there was a defining moment, Councillor Kelly. I went through the applications. Some of these individuals I know, some I don't. There was 1 or 2 applicants who don't reside in Belleville, so that makes them ineligible for appointment to the committees because they have to be a resident or own property in the city to do that. And then I just looked at, I sort of shortlisted them and looked at the strength of the applications and the individual candidates, and I feel comfortable in these as recommendations. And of course, I don't begrudge anyone from having a different perspective, but we have the recommendation that's on the floor, and as I said, we've made literally hundreds of appointments already this term, both in terms of the first round and then the second round, as well as council appointments. And it's never easy because, you can't include everybody. But these are 2, I think very distinguished individuals who want to serve the city, and I think would be good representatives and would work well on both of these committees.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. One question, both of these committees, the library and the transit, both have chairs. Were either one of those chairs spoke to or looked to for advice for sitting on those particular committees? Because it was quite, I looked through the applications and I have some, I would have picked two other people on both of them. I'm just wondering, and there may be some other discussion shortly, but was there any discussion with the chairs of those committees?
No, I did not for either committee, Councillor Thompson. Nor as I have not had discussion with chairs of any committees this term when the recommendations have come forward from me.
Yeah, and I appreciate that honesty. I'm just thinking maybe when it's chairs of the committees that they have some input. So I'll let everybody else talk before and I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. This is an awkward process, but this is what council's been presented with. So I'll stick handle through the awkwardness just fine here. We have the option of either an inclusive process or a closed handpick process. And a closed handpick process is how this started. And I'm not surprised by the two names that have returned because we were told 2 weeks ago. I think the words were, don't be a bit surprised if these two names come back up. And here they are. So I'm not really convinced that the other 17 or 15 individuals were considered. I'll be honest with you. I've been through this process a number of times. This has got to be the most awkward. And
so Councillor Carr, sorry, I apologize. I lost you there for the last 10 seconds. So I don't mean to ask you to repeat, but I really did not hear what you had said. So I just want to make you aware of that.
Can I just check with support? Is my audio still good?
It is now. Yeah, thank you.
Everything sounds great, Councillor Carr.
Okay, thank you. So like I was saying is that we have the opportunity for an inclusive process or closed hand pick process. And we were told 2 weeks ago that these two names would come back up. So I'm not convinced that the other names were considered. I've been through this process a number of times. This has got to be the most top-down process I've ever seen, where recommendations are coming out of the mayor's office. We are a council of 9, and we need to operate as a council of 9, not as one, and then we just have to follow along or get into these awkward conversations. And I'm not even talking about the individuals that are there, because in fairness, by their names being there, the process is so disjointed that we're back to square one. And so basically we've opened up a process in name only. We've basically, and the report's clear, it come from the mayor's office. So Mr. Mayor, you picked these two names. And basically by opening up a process like this, we've discounted everybody else. And I don't think that's fair. And so because of the process is flawed, I will not support these names. If they're defeated, as Councillor Thompson pointed out, there is a lot of good qualified people, and I'd be prepared to speak to the merits of each of them. But with this process, the way it is dictated, I'm not going to support it.
Councillor Carr, I actually don't think your comments are very fair at all. This is the process that we've used since 2019. In January 2019, recommendations came to council, and for all of those committees, replacements since then have come with recommendations for that. They came with the repopulating of committees earlier this year and again now. So, again, I know at the last meeting you had talked about the fact that you wanted to go back to the time 20 years ago when we used to do these appointments in closed session so that we would have an open and transparent process in camera. But Mr. McDonald, our clerk, has advised that this must be done in open session. And, you're free to vote how you wish, as well as to make your comments. And you have, and we appreciate them. And I'll move on now to Councillor Millette. I believe you had your hand up.
Commentary. Point of order. I don't know why you need the commentary. If you want to get into a debate, then let me have an opportunity to speak. But you don't get to provide the editorial.
Councillor Carr, that's not.
I would ask you to withdraw.
That's not a point of order.
I'd ask you to withdraw those comments. You cannot.
It's not a point of order, Councillor Carr. Councillor Millette, you're next on the list.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, and I I've really struggled with this after having read the fact that we had such an outpouring of 19 applicants with some very, very qualified people in the group. But again, it comes back, as we noted, that we were told, don't expect to see not see the other two come back. This puts us again in an awkward place. Personally, I know both who have been nominated by your worship for these positions. I have no problem whatsoever supporting the fact that they could do the job. As with Councillor Kelly and Councillor Carr, I have a bit of a problem with the process. And I'm looking right now at an open page with a very capable candidate that's not among the recommended for instance, for the library board. And I don't know if I'm not going to support the motion, but I'm certainly leaning towards abstaining, simply in the fact that I just, to debate the merits of Ms. May Anderson or Mr. Harris over these 19 that we invited to apply is unseemly, in my view, in this forum. And again, you know, I'm not one, certainly for a former journalist, to want these kinds of discussions to happen, any discussions that don't have to be done in public behind closed doors. But when we're talking about people in good faith who put their names forward in a public call, that we have to debate who's better over the other, there's an awful lot of hurt feelings that can happen in that kind of a process. And I don't think that's why we're here. But I'll wait to hear what my other colleagues have to say. Again, I'm so on the fence on this, literally right up until the vote right now. I'm not sure where I'm going with it.
Thank you, Councillor Millett. Yeah, it's a difficult spot to be in, but that's what we are here. We have to make these decisions, and we can't appoint everybody to the spots. We have only one on each of those committees, so difficult decisions need to be made. Councillor Sandison, I've got you next on my list.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So the comments that others have made, that this can be an uncomfortable process. I understand that, but it always surprises me that we wait until this point to sort of raise the flag on the process. We got ample opportunity throughout the term of council to change the process. We've got a human resource committee that this may not be part of their mandate, but they might want to bring forward a recommendation to council that they take a bit of a leadership role in terms of committee appointments. And that's certainly something I could get behind. So just because we don't like the process the way it is, doesn't mean that we should just sit back and complain about it. If we want to do something, let's change it. So that would be my comment on the process. As chair of the transit committee, I didn't receive any calls or requests from information. I did receive a call regarding an appointment to the library board. And so in answer to Councillor Thompson's question, that's my input. I looked at the candidates, and there are some really good candidates in there for both committees. And certainly picking up on Councillor Kelly's comment, I'd like to thank them all for putting their names forward, even those that don't reside within the city limits. And so the two individuals that have been brought forward, I also know both. I've spoken with both on different occasions, and I have no issues supporting them. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Alsop.
Thank you, Chair. And through you, just a first question to City Clerk Matt McDonald. Is it for sure the case that we can't do this in camera? Because I understand this is a bit of an awkward thing to do, but if there is not that option, then I certainly understand why we're doing it here in open session.
Through the chair to Councillor Alsop. Well, certainly awkward is not one of the 13 provisions or sections of Section 239 that would permit council to go in camera. Motion to go in camera is council's. All but one of them are may. And FIPA is a must. So other than that, you are able to do everything in open session. All of the decisions that you routinely make in camera can be done on the open floor. My recommendation to council, since my time here has been that this be done on the open floor. You're discussing people's merits for a position, not their personality, not their history, nothing of that nature. It may seem awkward. It's meant to be a merit-based discussion, and it should be able to be done in that manner. Councils have been taken to task when they have strayed off that path. I can tell you, having participated in camera committee appointment process, it did not always stay in a merit-based discussion. So I have a big issue with it being done in camera. From my perspective, it does not meet the provisions of openness and transparency that are inherent in the Municipal Act and that were put in there in 2006 and have been over the years strengthened, if anything. I had a long discussion with a couple times removed ombudsman of the Office of the Ombudsman of Ontario, who strenuously argued for openness and this instance, the appointment of committee and board members in particular. That individual likened it very much to the offices you all hold, which were done in a very open manner. I can assure you that all of your merits were discussed by many people in an open forum, and some of them not in a professional manner. The fact of the matter is the people that we're appointing tonight, potentially, are being asked to serve a function similar to yours for the allocation of resources, both personal and in kind, and real monetary in recommendations to you. So it is, while they're not being sworn in as council members, they're serving this community in a very real and significant manner. So there is gravity to what they've applied for. Some of them may not be aware of that, and while they may think it is unseemly and awkward, having their merits discussed in open session, the reality is that is the process that they're entering knowingly, or ought to be entering knowingly. So that's my opinion. That's simply what it is. But the motion to go in camera is certainly yours.
Great, thank you. And so with that clarification, I do appreciate that, and I understand the merits there. So on the names that we have before us, looking through the resumes that were submitted, the applications that were submitted, as everyone said, there's been some great applications. I felt that for the library board, that Jennifer May Anderson certainly stacked up in terms of qualifications, as well as anybody in that group, was my perspective. I also know that she has done a great job with Hospice Quinte. There's a $9.5 million goal. They're 80% of the way there. So I look at that sort of prior community involvement and the success that she's already had in the community. And so I'm certainly okay with that nomination. I would support that appointment. As well with Michael Harris. There's a couple resumes and applications that I thought were close. For instance, I quite liked Ian Stock. He had a great application. I thought also that Shane Lee had a really good application and a very different sort of slant on it. But I do agree with the mayor's comments relative to transportation being extended into Thurlow. And that was something that Michael Harris had addressed directly in his application. And so on those merits, I can certainly see, an argument being, for him to have that appointment because of obviously his Thurlow background and also years of involvement in the community as well. So I understand that there may be another way we'd like to do this. However, here we are. And I think that both of the names are quality names. And from my perspective, stacked up as well as anybody in that group.
Thank you, Councillor Alsop. I see Councillor Thompson wants to do a second round, but I think Councillor McCaw, you're the last one to speak in the first round. So if you have anything to say, I'll recognize you, and then I'll go to Councillor Thompson, and hopefully we can bring this to some type of a vote. Go ahead, Councillor McCaw.
Okay, thank you, through you. Just a couple of comments. When I hear the talk about going in camera, regarding these appointments, it wasn't too long ago when we were filling Councillor Pat Culhane's seat. And
Well, Councillor McCaw, can I interrupt you just for a
encountering
moment
some
again?
Problems with some women who were being threatened to apply.
Councillor McCaw, I'm sorry, you're breaking up again. I wonder if you can just turn off your video, because it seems that that makes your sound a little stronger, and then we could all hear you. So if you, so go ahead and I'll tell you if it sounds any better.
Is that better?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Is it better now? Okay.
Yes,
All
it
right.
is.
So it wasn't too long ago where I was in a process that involved replacing Pat Culhane's seat, whereby there was a situation where some women were being threatened, and there were a few councillors, one sending me an email and leaking the email to the media, discussing transparency and how they felt it wasn't transparent enough, only to turn around here the opposite story tonight. That aside, because I'm not about looking back, I'm about looking ahead. I spent some time getting to know, not getting to know, but getting to speak to both of the candidates that the names have been put forward after the last meeting. I didn't know Mr. Harris, so I did reach out to him and have a few conversations with him. I actually had a telephone conversation with Jennifer May Anderson, who I really did not know before. You know, I found she was very qualified, and I also learned that she may be considering a run for council in the future. With that in mind, it's always recommended that those who are considering a council run spend some time, you know, participating in committees. But denying her that opportunity, I don't think it's very fair. I hope that's not the reason that we are denying or considering denying Jennifer May Anderson. It does concern me. She is involved with the Women's Network. I like the fact she brings diversity to the table, but she brings more than diversity to the table. She's well qualified. And I'll echo Councillor Alsop when he speaks of Mr. Harris and about the rural transit. So I really have no issue at all with either one of these candidates. And you know, if we want to have a discussion about transparency or we want to make decisions regarding committee appointments, I've always known them to be in the open. But if we want to make a change that way, maybe we make a change in the future if we feel we should. Now is not that time. We had a lot of time before this to make that change, and we didn't. So why are we bringing it up now? I'll support both of these candidates happily. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McCaw. Okay, I think everyone's had a lot to say on this, and I appreciate that there may be a desire to go back and forth and have individual debates with different people. I'm not so sure that's really productive. Councillor Thompson, you had wanted to say something else. I think if it's new and it's not repetition, I'd like you to say it, and then hopefully we can move to a vote, at least to get some direction of where we're going to go. Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Just had a question, and I realize there's good candidates. I had picked another candidate for the library board out of diversity, but my question, if this fails, when do you make an amendment, or do you wait for this to fail? That's my question.
Okay. I'm just going to double check. I did have a conversation earlier with the clerk, but I'm just going to double check that nothing has changed in his opinion. And just give me one moment, please. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Thompson. Just I spoke again to the clerk. The motion has an intent, and if you wish to change the intent, the advice is to defeat the motion and then introduce a motion afterwards if it fails.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Carr, anything new that you'd like to?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a clarification, because I know last time that this came up, we talked about open versus closed meeting. And the clerk was very clear and indicated that this had to be an open, should be an open session issue. I have no issue with that. Because I heard closed session and awkward together, and I want to clarify, because maybe perhaps I wasn't being understood. The awkward part had nothing to do with closed versus open. I have no issue with this being an open process. The awkwardness is that we're back here 2 weeks later with the same names as predicted, as we were advised, with the discounting of everybody else that's applied. That's the awkwardness. So just to be clear, it's not the awkward in the process of being open, not at all. The clerk was very clear. Thank you.
All right. Well, you know, what I'm just going to say is that anyone suggesting that I said 2 weeks ago that it was likely that those names would come back because of the strength of these two individual candidates. And I went through and I considered I read all of the resumes. I went through them. I considered all the candidates. And I can tell you, had someone come that I felt was better than those two, I would have made that recommendation. But in that consideration, these are two extraordinary candidates. There are other candidates that applied for these positions that we must find a way to include in different areas of the city. They just weren't the best in this particular capacity, but we will continue over the next little while to find a way to include them. You know, it's always a difficult spot to be in. You know, again, anyone is free to bring a motion forward to amend the procedural bylaw in terms of how we select candidates, and then council can consider that through that process. We haven't had that, and this process has worked quite well since the beginning. Councillor Feeney, I see you. I see you trying to get my attention, Councillor Feeney. Go ahead.
My only comment is the fact that this whole discussion and everything else, it's very difficult for people in the community to come forward. And the more hurdles that we put in front of them and the people that would like to come forward, I think tonight is a very good example of why someone would not want to put their name forward. So I just had to make that comment. All right.
No, and it's been, that's a challenge that all councils that deal with this in open session have to. I do know that the inclusion committee is going to be considering the composition of council committees as well as the whole process. So they, you know, I hope that they will give some thought and come back with a recommendation. Councillor Kelly, did you have something else you wanted to add? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, just real quick, through you, Mr. Chair, Mayor, I am you know, was one of the first to speak. I wasn't questioning their qualifications or their commitment. The two that it looks like they'll be moving forward, and I'm going to support them. I think there has been touched on people that have made the commitment and they're involved in their city. My thing, and City Clerk Matt McDonald explained it well to us, a nice refresher course. I remember Councillor Sanderson, myself, Councillor Millette, and Councillor Williams back in the day in 2018 when we had this open discussion on individuals joining the 30+ committees. There were a few chaps in council chambers that night, and their names were bounced around, I believe, 5 to 7 times. And I felt for them. And that's where I'm coming from this. I think to have a discussion about the 19 people, including all of us, has its merit. That was the term that City Clerk McDonald has been tossing around, merit. I think that has some merit to it, but I feel comfortable with these two folks being, you know, at least considered with the recommendations from the mayor. The other part is it's just uncomfortable, as Councillor Feeney touched on just moments ago. It could make people want to step back and not get involved if they're going to have 9 people deciding on do they make the grade or not. So that's where I'll leave it at.
Yeah, well, we've had a good discussion about it, and I think that final point is a good one. You know, certainly all of my comments today, I have tried to dignify all of the applicants, and I've tried to stress the positive, and I'm comfortable with my conduct on this, and I will call the vote. I know Councillor Carr has asked for a recorded vote. Is that still the case, sir? So I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please. So again, just to make everyone familiar, the resolution is to accept the recommendations and to amend the bylaw as per the recommendations.
Counselor Thompson,
No,
Counselor Feeney,
Yes.
Counselor Alsop,
Yes.
Counselor Carr,
No.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Millet,
I will abstain.
Unfortunately, you only have two choices. It's either yes or a no. That's
I know,
according to the rules.
that's still how torn I am. I will vote no.
Counselor McCaw,
Yes.
Counselor Sanderson,
Yes.
Mayor Panchak,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, thank you. Moving on to 8A2, policy amendment, use of corporate resources for election purposes. It is the Director of Corporate Services, Clerk's Report Number DCS 2021-27, and the resolution is that pursuant to the Director of Corporate Services, Clerk's Report Number DCS 2021-27, Council approved the amended use of corporate resources for election purposes policy. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for this resolution? Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Millet. Any discussion on this, colleagues? Councillor Thompson.
sorry, can Matt just sort of explain the changes here? I understand it's more on the buses. So am I reading it correctly that we're not allowed to advertise on the buses, or we are? If Matt can just clarify
Yep.
that.
Go ahead, Mr. McDonald.
And through the chair, to Councilor Thompson, for all councilors and any potential future candidates that might be watching. So in previous elections, in the last two, we, like most municipalities in Ontario, had amended our policy, if it didn't already read that way, to prohibit, so not allow candidates, whether incumbents or potential councilors, from advertising on corporate resources, benches, transit benches, shelters, or buses, things of that nature. Since 2018 election, heading towards 2022, a federal member challenged a municipality for their standing policy, which was worded almost verbatim as ours, which is very common across Ontario, and they won on a charter challenge for freedom of speech restriction on. And so the majority of clerks across the province are amending their policy, as ours is being proposed to you tonight, to permit candidates to advertise on buses, benches, and transit shelters, to allow that under the change in law or the decision that was made by that federal member's challenge of the municipality. So it's recognition that there was a limit on free speech is what the judge decided. And so, as I said, most municipal clerks are amending the policy that had that language restricting that.
So years gone by, we were allowed, and then we changed it then, Mr. Clerk?
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, probably around either 2010 election or previously, but in 2010 for sure, the policy was in place that you were not able to advertise. And the only reason I can with some assurance tell you that is because we had a member at the time who was a member of the media and whose face was already traveling around the city on a city transit vehicle. And I had many calls about the unfairness of that advantage. It was certainly not a campaign advertisement. It was very clearly related to their professional capacity.
Yeah.
But certainly had to rule and send that person who was making the challenge written decision based on that. But that was pretty common. And then so our language was amended to be very clear to candidates that those were restricted areas and not to be used in and amongst all of the other ones that candidates are not allowed to use. That is being changed. So candidates would be permitted to advertise on those three mediums, paying the going rate as per our agreements with anybody who's wishing to use them as a form of advertising for personal or commercial reasons.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else on this item? So I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Item 8A3, engineering and design services for the North Park Street Pumping Station Pump and SCADA Rehabilitation Project. It is the General Manager, Environmental Services Report Number GMES 2021-05, and the resolution is that in accordance with Section 30.3, sole and single sourcing, approval and reporting of the city's purchasing bylaw 2020-09, that the proposal from Aramosa Engineering, Inc. be accepted for the design, engineering, construction, administration, and inspection of the needed pump and programmable logic controller and SCADA upgrades in the amount of $129,325.55 plus $16,812.32 for a total dollar amount of $146,137.87. And that the mayor and the city clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of this corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to get on the floor? Councillor Sandison and Councillor Alsop. Any questions or discussion on this item? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. So we'll move now to 8B, consent items, where council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and that council shall consider such items individually. So I will go around in the order of my screen, and I'll start with Councillor Feeney. Is there anything you'd like to pull from there, please?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kelly.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Carr.
8B2, please.
Okay. Councillor Thompson.
No, thank you.
Councillor Sandison.
8B3.
Okay. Councillor Millette.
I'll join Councillor Carr on 8B2.
Okay. Councillor McCaw.
No, thank you.
Councillor Alsop.
I had 8B2 as well.
Okay, so the resolution that we'll start off with, that the following agenda items be approved, the exception of items 8B2 and 8B3. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Alsop and Councillor Feeney. All in favor? It's carried. 8B2, request to remove listed status for 49 Victoria Avenue under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. It is the Principal Planner's Report Number PP-2021-28. And the resolution is that 49 Victoria Avenue remains a listed property under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Millette. Councillor Carr, you had first raised this item, so I'll recognize you first.
Yes, thank you. So just as I read this, that if the property is not listed, then the municipality still has 10 days to publish notice of intent to designate. Is that correct?
So Mr. Deming is on the call here, or on the meeting, so I see him. Good afternoon, Mr. Deming. Did you hear Councillor Carr's question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, can you go ahead then?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Carr. Yes, essentially when they apply for their demolition permit, typically it's a 10-day turnaround for the building department. The listing status effectively gives the municipality 60 extra days to determine if they want to designate it or not. Otherwise, we have to stick within that 10-day period.
Okay, so when I look at this, and let me just say very clearly, I'm all for heritage buildings and preservation, and certainly history is of interest to me. But when I look at this particular property, and then I look at the email from the resident, so essentially a little bit of government overreach here in terms of, by listing the property, has possibly precluded a sales transaction of this piece of property. And whether the property owner knew that it was listed or not, clearly the city's articulated that notification had gone out, and so the property owner should have been aware. But nonetheless, it was the fact that the property was listed has scared off potentially the purchaser of the property. Now, when I read the descriptor from the property owner, while the main structure of the building remains intact as it was when it was originally built. There was an extension built on the back, and the interior now is 4 separate units as a rental property. And given the fact that, you know, between ownership and rental properties, I think we would be naive to think that someone's going to just go in here and knock this down. They're going to use it probably as a income property for rentals. And with the demand that we have in our city, I think that's pretty clear. So I see no issue with delisting it. There's still the 10 days notice. So what it comes down to at the end of the day, we still get notification. So it comes down to the agility of our government. Can we do it in 10 days or do we need to do it in 60? And I think that if we already are aware of this property and there is the 10-day gap, then it's the expectation is government needs to move within that 10 days. By delisting the property, it doesn't, it may actually bring the sale back on. And quite frankly, I don't want us as a government to be in the way of a private transaction. And that's kind of what's occurring here. So we still have the opportunity to preserve with the 10-day notice. We just have to be quicker. So I would actually like to amend the motion if I could to have it removed as a listed property.
Let me just check with the clerk in terms of the process for the amendment first, please. So you were the mover of the motion and Councillor Millet's the seconder. Mr. McDonald is suggesting that your amendment is contrary to the intent of the original motion. So his suggestion is that you actually withdraw it and then reintroduce your motion, which is the opposite. And then it's clean because then we don't have to deal with it. So Councillor Millet, I see you nodding your head.
Oh, I'm not at all in any way, shape, or form supporting any motion to delist.
So then you're both gonna withdraw the motion. Motion's withdrawn, and now Councillor Carr is making a motion that the property
is removed as a listed property
under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Moved by Councillor Carr. Councillor Millet, you're good with that? You're okay, so I need a second.
No, I will not support it. He wants, Councillor Carr is supporting delisting this piece of property. I won't support it.
Okay, so then I need a seconder for Councillor Carr's motion. Councillor Alsap has seconded it. The new motion is on the floor. So what we're talking about now is a resolution to remove it from the listing. Councillor Carr, is there anything else you want to say before I open it up for discussion?
Just that we still have 10 days notice. So it's a matter of whether as a municipality, we can move quick enough in 10 days versus 60. So I don't see why we can't be more agile, that's all.
Okay, thank you. So discussion. Councillor Millet, I see you got your hand up, and then Councillor Alsap.
Yes.
Go ahead, Councillor Millet.
I had asked that this be brought up just so I could speak on the merits of keeping this listing in place. The letter writer, the property owner, I was actually offended to read that the property owner is accusing the city of sneakily putting in a listing to designate this property 7 years ago. I don't think our Heritage Belleville or the Heritage Committee is in any way, shape, or form sneaking around in the middle of the night and then sending mysterious letters that the owner didn't see. I'm sorry. This city has an unenviable reputation of not taking enough of our historic buildings seriously enough. And yes, we get 10 days to protect this from demolition. This house is built in 1835. It was the home of the land surveyor who laid out the historic East Hill neighborhood of our city. Is it the most handsome structure on the East Hill? No. Is it significant? Yes. it's the reason that we have policies like this in place that we wouldn't see the demolition of the post office that was where, I'm sorry, I used to work there, and I worked with and for the Morton family who built it, but that carbuncle of a building that is where the Intelligencer is now, and the historic, beautiful structure that was there before was allowed to be demolished. That would never happen today. Is 49, was that the address 49 Victoria? Is it a handsome structure as we see in other areas of the city? No, it's a pretty run of the mill brick home that was built, but it's significant. And if it gives us another 60 days to save the Wreckers Ball from taking away one more historic building from our city, I say keep that mechanism in place. And just for the expediency of somebody who wants to turn what they see just as another old building into another rooming house, or if the new buyer wants to knock it down and we have to scramble in 10 days, no, I can't support this at all. And I'm pretty serious about this because I've watched too many buildings in this city go under the Wreckers Ball in the past. So no, I can't.
Thank you, Councillor Millette. Councillor Alsop.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, I certainly don't want to upset the heritage people because, as you all know, they will remember it. But, we're at a point here where this is a homeowner who, I feel that we should take them at face value. I understand that there's been some offense taken to the idea that anyone was sneaking around, but, this is a person who did not buy a heritage building when they purchased it. It was listed during their tenure as the owner of the building, but they say that they did not receive the notification. And that's not to impugn any city department, say that it wasn't sent, but sometimes things are missed, and clearly this person feels like they did not know that this was going to be an issue. It does make it more difficult to sell the property because it is a listed property, even though it is not a full heritage property. And so that sort of rubs me the wrong way that we would have it set on a separate list where it would be denoted when someone's trying to sell the property that is listed as a heritage property, but it is not a full heritage property in and of itself. The other thing that I noted in reading the report is that at the time that I think it was about 127 properties were listed all at once in April because of the work of the Heritage Belleville Committee. There were 5 inquiries, and one of them was requesting that their property be removed from the list, and that property was removed from the list. So if we take the homeowner at their word that they did not see this letter, had they have seen it, they may have got it delisted at that time, as the only other homeowner that requested did receive their property being delisted. So, looking back on that, it seems like at the time, had they have noticed, this wouldn't have been an issue. And certainly now it's something that is causing some hardship for the individual that owns it. So I think on this one, because it has not been designated a full heritage property, and because there is not a proposal to demolish it currently, it's proposed that it will be sold and then continued on in use, that for me, I think I'm going to stand with the homeowner on this one and request that we do delist the property. And if in the future it comes to the point where someone is trying to demolish the property, I would ask that we move quickly then. But I don't think we should be able to hinder someone's ability to sell their own property, which was not a heritage property when they listed it. And if we are going to take them at face value, that they were not aware that it had been listed.
Thank you, Councillor Alsop. Anyone else on this item? So, Mr. Deming, I wonder if I can ask you a couple questions. So, a lot is being made of the 10 days versus the 60 days. And so, is the time limit of the 60 days in order to allow you to consult with the committee as to an application? Can you just sort of talk about that for me, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. There's a number of considerations that go into it. One is definitely consultation with Heritage Belleville. Another is potentially to designate it, we have to do further research, background research into the property itself to determine if we do want to designate it. The listing is simply that. It's a time saver for us. The 10-day turnaround, that might not line up with council meetings, for example. So that could be a special council meeting. So it's also to align with that schedule as well.
Okay, so I guess the question, which to me is also important, is that if the purchaser was willing to accept the registration of this property, does that slow down the process of transferring of the property? Or does it only impact it if the purchaser is not interested in maintaining that status?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I'm understanding correctly, the listing status should not affect the sale. It doesn't have any controls. They can modify the building. They can, depending on their zoning, they could apply for another unit. Modifying that, it's simply demolition protection, and to recognize it under the municipal scope that we have designated or identified it as a heritage value.
So then, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not familiar with this process. So if I wanted to buy this property and I wanted to do anything other than demolish it, I would be permitted according to the zoning and those conditions. But if I wanted to buy this property and I wanted to demolish it, the current motion would mean that the city would only have 10 days notice to do something about it. If we defeat this and restate the status, then we would have 60 days in which to respond, but only for someone who wants to demolish the building.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Deming. I really appreciate it. I also won't support this resolution. And again, the only item that this resolution allows for is a more speedy demolition of the property. And I think that's entirely what we're looking at in terms of trying to preserve our heritage. And, everybody likes heritage when we have it, but they don't understand that at some point, someone may have wanted to demolish all these structures that we now look to and say, isn't it great that we have this history? In the last few months, if you take a look at some of the work that's been done on the old China Gate property, who I think that most people probably 2 years ago would have said that is not good for anything other than demolition. And to see what Mr. Firestone and the renovators are doing to make that better. The Maze Mall is another example of restoration of one of those historic buildings that really makes our downtown have all the charm. And to have something that is from the 1830s, as Councillor Millette talked about, I did not know the history of that building. I did not know the history of the individual who built it, who went along and was involved with surveying a large part of the city. I think that is worth preserving. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't agree with that they should alter it, that they can renovate it, that they can make additions, they can make changes. But I certainly don't think that demolition of it is worthy without council having an ability to review that decision. So I also won't be supporting the resolution as is, and I'll if it is defeated, then I'll support the resolution, original resolution. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I want to support the amendment motion. If you travel the world, and I haven't traveled that big of the world, but heritage is such an important part in so many communities. And if this is going to safeguard us to keep a building that is many, many years old, and I just think we need to preserve as much as we can in this community. The building is not in bad shape. And if we can preserve that, I think we owe it to our city. There's been too many buildings tore down in the years gone by, as Councillor Millette said, without much even thought put to it. So would certainly not support the amended motion. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Feeney.
Just to make a point, I have friends that are graphic designers and whatever, and a girlfriend came to visit me for one day, and she ended up spending 7 days because she looked at the architecture of our downtown and the wonderful buildings that we have. And she has such an appreciation for architecture and design that we kind of walk by and don't think about. So absolutely, anything that we can do to preserve, I'm with that as well.
Okay. Anyone else have anything else to say? Councillor Carr, I'll come to you last, just if I'll find out if anyone has anything else. Okay, seeing none, we'll let you wrap it up, Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thank you. Let me be very clear here. This is not about me greenlighting a process to expedite demolition in any way, shape, or form. And I think the debate kind of went a little bit that way. So I want to make my position clear. Perhaps maybe I wasn't as passionate as Councillor Millette in terms of the preservation of historical buildings. Not at all. What I'm simply looking at is the difference between 10 days and 60 days from a bureaucratic red tape perspective. At the end of the day, the new owner or the existing owner could say, I want to demolish it. And there's 10 days to react or 60 days to react. The thing I hear more and more is government is always slow to react. And I'm looking at it from the perspective if I was the owner of that home and wanted to sell it. And the problem is, I think perhaps, and I'm not sure, is perhaps maybe the buyer doesn't understand the heritage listing. Because once you hear the word heritage, a lot of times what people think is, I can't change anything. So whatever's there, I inherit. And so then if you're buying a piece of property, you sit there and go, I've just lost all my flexibility of an asset I own. And clearly, Mr. Demings articulated it that that's not the case, that they can make all the modifications, and they have. It's a 4-unit rental building now. So it has been kind of hacked up for rooming houses, if you will, or apartments. But the preservation of the outside is still there. My only concern is that as a private owner, we've got a little bit of government red tape that could prevent a sale. And that's the only perspective I was coming from. Believe you me, that if it came down to a new owner buying it, and yeah, okay, we've got 10 days, but I believe government can move quicker and we still have the mechanisms to protect. And I would be the first one to put my hand up to say, absolutely protect that building based on what we know and the historical significance behind it. So just to be clear there, this is not about me raising the city here and getting rid of all the historical. It's just about the bureaucratic way we can do business. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the motion that's on the floor is to remove the listed property from Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? It's defeated. So can I ask for a motion, the resolution that 49 Victoria Avenue remains a listed property under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, moved by Councillor Millette, seconded by Councillor Thompson. I think we've talked this enough. Does anyone have anything else? No, then I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. 8B3, water servicing agreements, 39 Ash Crescent. The General Manager, Environmental Services Report number GMES 2021-06. And the resolution is that bylaws to approve and authorize water servicing agreements between the Corporation of the City of Belleville and the property owners of 39 Ash Crescent be prepared for Council's consideration. Councillor Sanderson's going to move. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Carr, and I'm just going to ask for some advice. One moment, please. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. This is a delicate issue, Councillor Sanderson, because this has been an item that Council has discussed previously in closed session, and so we have to be very mindful about the fact that this was the direction Council gave for staff to bring forth this bylaw. And so, if I know Mr. DeCola is on the meeting, if you want to ask a question. But I am told that I need to be very careful not to have that discussion move down the wrong path. And I hope you understand.
I think I understand.
Okay.
So my question through the chair to Mr. DeCola is, are services currently being provided for these brand new services?
Thank you. Mr. DeCola.
Services are currently in the area, so it is a current service.
Okay, and so we've made an arrangement to hook up 39 Ash, and we've arranged a convenient payback period. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, colleagues. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much, Mr. DeCola, for joining us. So that was 8B, the 8B items. So now we'll move to 8C. We have one council information matter, 8C1. Can I ask by a show of hands, does anybody want this item pulled? So then seeing none, I'll say that the following agenda item be received. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. All in favor? It's carried. A motion to rise and report. Moved by Councillor Alsop, seconded by Councillor Feeney. All in favor? It's carried. We'll move to the bylaws portion of our meeting. First reading of bylaws, and with your permission, I'll do the numbers.
Your worship,
2021. Yes.
worship. When you get to bylaw 2021-114, I'd like that to be as a recorded vote.
Okay, let me just get some direction as well, because typically first read, that would typically happen on second reading, and
Well, if
we
you
would
can get some
have,
yeah,
yeah,
get
we
some
would have
clarification.
discussion on second reading. There's no discussion on first reading. So I'm going to just ask Mr. McDonald, one moment, please. Councillor Thompson, the only time that we separate bylaws from the rest of them is when one of our colleagues has a pecuniary interest and they've declared it. And so we separate that so that they don't have to be involved in voting on that item. No one's declared a pecuniary interest on that item, and there is no discussion. There is no discussion to demonstrate at this time why a recorded vote would be in favor. So I'm going to deny that. You're certainly going to be able to, under second reading, be able to pull it, to discuss it, to amend it, to have a recorded vote on it, but it's not under first reading. So,
and I understand that. I just wanted to make a point that this was a controversial item from the start.
Okay,
and I know
so
there's no discussion.
again, we're not supposed to be, so you
Yep, okay,
are,
thank
but
you.
I appreciate you understanding. Thank you. So first reading of bylaws, 2021-110, 111, 112, 113, and 114. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor Alsop. All in favor? It's carried. Second reading of bylaws and discussion, bylaw number 2021-110, 111, 112, and 113. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Alsop. Any discussion on any of those items? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. And then third and final reading of bylaws number 2021-110, 111, 112, and 113. May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Mollett, seconded by Councillor Kelly. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We will now move to new business. And I'll start off just by, again, taking a moment to thank all of our residents for adhering to the regulations that have been put in place by the Government of Ontario based on the most recent province-wide stay-at-home order. We are all grateful to all the residents and businesses who are cooperating and working hard to stop the spread of this virus. We must continue to be vigilant and look after each other. The continuing shutdown has impacted city operations, but we continue to offer access to as many of our normal city services and facilities as we possibly can, while keeping resident safety top of mind. So just some quick updates and some reminders. City Hall is open by appointment only. Those who require in-person service to obtain marriage licenses or building permits or other services are asked to call to book an appointment. In an effort to assist with the financial difficulties imposed by COVID, the City of Belleville has provided a 1-month extension for the second installment of 2021 property taxes. They were due last month. We've now extended them. They'll be due on the 27th of May, so later this week. Transit service continues to operate with safety precautions in place. The transit team continues to build upon their COVID-19 safety protocols to ensure the safety of riders and our drivers and staff. We're so pleased that transit drivers are now able to self-test 3 times per week with a 15-minute rapid test to further that safety and that security. The Belleville Public Library continues to offer curbside pickup and drop-off, and the Library Board has also announced the waiving of all late fees for the remainder of the year. The Quinte Sports and Wellness Center is currently closed to the public. However, many programs are continuing via Zoom where possible. And we continue to plan to provide full outdoor activities this summer with appropriate COVID-19 safety protocols in place and the resumption of full indoor activities when it is safe to do so. More information on those activities will be released when it is available. I do want to make a special mention of our thanks to our amazing Parks and Open Spaces employees who over the weekend scrambled to include our splash pads as available services over the hot, long weekend. Many children and their families were able to have a more comfortable, active weekend as a result, and we're certainly appreciative. The provincial vaccine booking system is open, and we are very happy to announce that the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center will be opening their doors to the community as a vaccination clinic at the Family Dental Center Arena starting on May 31st. Working closely with the Hastings Prince Edward Public Health, the city employees have created a safe and easily accessible space for residents to receive their COVID-19 vaccinations. We're grateful to everyone who has shown patience through this vaccination process and registering. We expect significant supply to become available in the coming days and weeks, and we encourage residents to keep trying. Our new facility will bring a capacity of an additional 2,500 vaccinations per day on stream. So that is wonderful news, and we're proud of our employees who have helped to facilitate that. As a council, we remain collectively and singularly focused on the safety and health of our residents in all of our decisions. We thank everyone for their cooperation and support of our efforts and encourage everyone to get vaccinated as soon as they are possible, or they are possibly able to. With that, I will see, does anyone else have any new business items they want to raise today? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, I received a request from a taxpayer concerning backyard hens and chickens. And I know this come up on a number of occasions before. And if I could get an update, they're looking for an update. And I know that we were anticipating an update. So if I could have that update for the next council meeting on the process of that, so that we can agree with it or don't agree with it. So
Councillor Thompson, I'll double check with Mr. McDonald, but my recollection is we received the deputation and then we did not direct any action to be taken on it.
okay.
We'll certainly go back and look at the meeting where that was introduced. I know we had a very very competent, very good presentation by I believe she was originally a military spouse and she wanted to have that ability, but we did not make any decision to ask for a report or to ask about having a bylaw drafted or anything. We just received it. But what I'll do is I'll double check to make sure. If we did, I can give you an update. Otherwise, it'll be up to someone to introduce it or ask for a report from, I don't even know which committee would be responsible for helping to work on that.
I'm not sure. As I say, I just received this yesterday and she's asking for further clarification. So I will call Mr. Matt McDonald tomorrow and discuss it further. And then I'll get back to this lady here and get some clarification for myself and from Matt for this lady. Thank you.
And then perhaps if I can ask if you can just send a note to all of us so that we're just aware of what that is, that would be great.
Certainly, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Your Worship, Your Worship, that issue, the backyard hen issue, sorry to interrupt in this manner, but as chair of the Green Task Force, it is on our table right now. We have had and are having discussion about it at the committee level. So I'll communicate offline with Councillor Thompson. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
New business, Councillor Carr.
Yes, thank you. Just in addition to the library waiving fees, I just wanted to also mention that we'll continue with pickup service through phase 1 of the provincial reopening. It's not till phase 2, and of course we have a date, but that's all dependent upon some benchmarks that the city or that the province has provided. And in phase 2, libraries can open with a capacity of 25%. So it's status quo on pickup through phase 1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And if you can just please communicate to staff, I've heard very great reviews of the curbside service that folks are getting, and so we really appreciate doing it under these times. Anyone else for new business today? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, perhaps to General Manager Joe Reid. So I am receiving reports of gypsy moth infestation. I don't know how widespread it is across the city, but we've got reports in Settlers Ridge at the south end, abutting Maitland on city-owned trees there, as well as up in Trinity Court. So that's for Settlers Ridge. We're getting, or I've received reports of the problem in Heritage Park up on Redwood Drive. So I'm just wondering, what I'm being asked is whether we have a policy in terms of dealing with this, be it through spraying or removal. If Manager Reid can comment, that would be appreciated.
So Councillor Sanderson, Manager Reid's not on the call today, so we'll relay that request to him, or if you want to also just follow up with him, because I think the next meeting is not until June the 14th, and then we can get an answer. I know we have a wide...
I'm just hoping to use this meeting to get
Sure.
just a general public notification out there.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll ask the question and have that information, but in the meantime, if residents are concerned about gypsy moths, they know that you've raised the issue, and we're going to look and find out what our current policy is. I'm not familiar with our current policy. We have a policy dealing with a number of things when it comes to dealing with those, if I can call them nuisances and other things, but we'll look into it.
Maybe as a result of that, if we do have a policy, maybe we could use the communication team to put out a City of Belleville notice to
Sure.
Just update. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, Councillor Kelly, I think you were next on my list. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just over the last couple of weeks, I've had a running theme. Some people have reached out to me just about speed in the city. And I was speaking to a resident on Cedar Street today. Apparently there's no speed limit sign, and Lois Blight reached out to me. She's very concerned about the speed. Young kids now are out on the streets. And then I was speaking to a gentleman that there's no speed limit posted through the downtown core as you're entering downtown Belleville. And this is a very conscientious driver, but he was going through the downtown core, and Belleville Police Service pulled him over and had a conversation with him. But the police even had stated, the officer said that there's nothing posted. And then I received another call from another resident from a smaller street that there's no speed limit posted. So maybe we can get something from transportation or what department that comes under, so I can have that conversation. Maybe others are having that same conversation with people as well. Streets with no speed limits.
Yeah. Councillor Thompson, I see you got your hand up, and you're chair of the Transportation Committee. Do you want to comment on Councillor Kelly's
if I may, Your Worship? Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Kelly, if you would forward those concerns to the Transportation Committee, and where it goes from here, if it's speed, it goes directly from the Transportation Committee through Christine to the police force. And you can also notify the police force through their connection through City Hall also on speeding. Where right now, the committee's dealing with some speeding down on near the Anchorage, which has become very serious. So speeding is an issue. Get that to the Transportation Committee and we'll forward it on and have some dialogue with the police force. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson, and I'll get you that information, and I hope to have a speedy reply. Thank you.
How about slow reply?
Well, I think there is nowhere slower in the city than downtown. It's a posted speed limit of 30 kilometers an hour, as we decided last term. And there are signs at the top of Front Street and at the bottom, but we'll get the committee to also look into it. Anyone else on new business? Okay, seeing none. We have no motions today. So anyone have any notice of motions they wish to bring forward at this time? Seeing none, announcements. Does anybody have any announcements they'd like to make? Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. I just three comments. I'm going to hold this up. We got this, all of us, this week in our information package. Can you see it? Quinte Arts Council Spring 2021 Umbrella Magazine. Thanks to Executive Director Janet Gerald and her team. Great article on David R. Miracle, a renowned stone carver and musician. David had a story done by actually Janet Gerald, and David, well-known stone carver, and he's going to be performing at the Olympics. Not the Olympics, but the Juno Awards. He taped it at the Empire Theater. It'll be seen June 6th on TV. So well done to David and his wife, Kimberly Miracle. The next post or announcement is the city of Belleville at Belleville General Hospital has had 26 boys born that went on to play professional hockey. Belleville has its first woman just signed to a professional contract. Cassidy Winkle signed. She's a Belleville Bearcats graduate just last week, two-time national champ at Clarkson University in the States with the Buffalo Buetts, and she is going to start her professional hockey career in Buffalo. So congratulations to Cassidy, and inspiration for all those young girls with the Bearcats. And finally, tomorrow at the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee meeting, it's Asian Heritage Month here in Canada. And tomorrow our guest speaker, and it's going to be taped by the city, and it'll be up on the website on our YouTube channel. It's a chance for us to celebrate the contributions that Canadians and Asians descent have made and continue to make in Canada. Tomorrow, Kenzo DeZona, well known in Belleville. He arrived here in the city in 1969, went on to be very successful with his karate business. He's taught thousands of kids karate in his career. So he'll be our guest speaker, and he comes from Japan, and that's tomorrow. So it'll be uploaded, and people can see what Kenzo, or at least his story about coming to Belleville in 1969. That's all I have for you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for announcements? Okay, I have a few proclamations. June is a busy month, so I would like to start off by proclaiming June as National Deafblind Awareness Month. Deafblind is a unique disability that incorporates the sensory loss of both sight and hearing. Increased public awareness is crucial to ensure individuals who are deafblind are able to live full, meaningful lives. June is also the birth month of Helen Keller, an internationally recognized person who was deafblind. I would like to proclaim June as Seniors Month in the city of Belleville. It is a time when we recognize our amazing older adults and the contributions they have made in communities, not just here in Belleville, but all across Ontario. This June, our recreation team is focusing on programs and services that meet the needs of seniors so they can remain healthy, engaged, and able to live life to the fullest. I would also like to proclaim June as Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Awareness Month. PTSD can affect all ages, children through seniors, and treatment is available. Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Month urges everyone to seek help for those who may have PTSD requiring medical assistance. I would also like to proclaim June as Recreation and Parks Month. Recreation programs, parks, and open spaces are crucial to our community and enhance our quality of life. It enhances our balanced living, and it helps to maintain clean air and water. We are fortunate to have a variety of recreation and park systems in the city of Belleville, and I urge all residents to take advantage of these countless opportunities this month and all year round. Finally, I would like to proclaim June as Pride Month in the city of Belleville. The Pride flag will be flown at the Quinney Sports and Wellness Center during the month of June to celebrate this important month. In terms of announcements, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the retirement of a long-standing city employee. Lisa Gilmore started with the city on May 25th, 1992 as an information systems assistant until April 23rd, 2019, when she became a web services technician. She has been with the city for 29 years. Congratulations to Lisa, and we wish her and her family all the best in her retirement. On May the 21st, I was honored to join Julia Gosson of the Victoria Order of Nurses to raise their flag at the Quinney Sports and Wellness Center in honor of VON Week, which runs from May 23rd to the 29th this year. The Victorian Order of Nurses is a charitable, community-based healthcare organization and is vital to the health of our community. And later that same day, I was pleased to join members of the Butterfly Run Quinte for the unveiling of their new monument in West Zwicks Park. This monument is a beautiful tribute to the tireless work of the Butterfly Run Committee. The run takes place annually to bring awareness to and break the silence around pregnancy and infant loss, and to raise money for the maternal unit at the Belleville General Hospital. The Participation Community Better Challenge runs from June 1st to 30th this year. This is a national physical activity initiative to encourage Canadians to get active and find Canada's most active community. It is open to everyone, and all minutes are tracked on the app and website during the month of June. Those activities count toward a community's total score. Download the Participation app today to start tracking. And with that, I will ask for a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2021-115, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on May 25th, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 25th day of May 2021. Moved by Councillor Feeney, seconded by Councillor Alsap. All in favor? It's carried. Motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you, and we will see everybody